All right, let's get into it. Today, we are breaking down a brand new concept album that is a lot. Seriously, it's dense, it's provocative, and you really have to dig in to get what's going on. We're talking about Mabozza, and trust me, this is one wild ride. Okay, so let's just dive right in, because from the jump, this album just throws these shocking lines right at you. They're almost blasphemous, you know? It's clearly meant to grab your attention, and let me tell you, it absolutely works. So, when you first listen, what you're getting is just pure carnal chaos. It's all about this central character, this narrator who calls himself Mabozza, and he does not hold back at all. And you see it right away. The lyrics are just relentlessly twisting sacred religious ideas into these super graphic sexual situations. It's this mix that's, well, it's obviously designed to make you feel a little uncomfortable, like you're hearing something you shouldn't be. And with lines like this, you start to get a real clear picture of our narrator, right? He's coming across as hypersexual, totally unapologetic, and just aggressively masculine. He's basically painting himself as this dude who's all about pure, unfiltered impulse. But it doesn't just stop at sex. This whole persona escalates, and fast. It moves into these moments of really graphic, even criminal violence. The entire story just gets darker and more disturbing, and it's seriously pushing the limits of what you'd ever expect to hear on a record. So this is the big question, right? What is really going on here? Is this whole thing just shock value for the sake of shock value, or is there something deeper, a real artistic purpose buried under all of this chaos? To figure that out, we've got to look beyond the crazy lyrics and actually see what the artist himself has to say about the project. Because honestly, this is where the album's real mission starts to click into place.
And boom, here it is. This single statement from the artist just completely reframes the entire album. All of a sudden, it's not just a bunch of shocking tracks. It's a very deliberate satirical concept piece. He actually calls it a counterspell against what he's seeing as this new wave of Puritanism.
So then who is this Mabozza guy? I mean, really? Well, the official bio makes it super clear. He's not supposed to be taken as a real person. No way. He's this absurd character, you know? Part burlesque MC, part armchair radical, just dripping with irony. He's designed to literally be the madness that he's supposedly calling out. Okay, so we've established it's satire. But how does it actually work? Let's peel back the next layer, because this is where we see how the album hides its social commentary right inside all those wild, explicit lyrics.
And check this out. This is the method to the madness. The song titles and what they seem to be about, they're basically Trojan horses. So a song might sound like it's about stock trading or a fancy meal or geopolitics, but underneath, it's a really sharp critique of power, of corruption, of how messed up the system is.
Okay, let's take Cream Tea, for example. On the surface, it's about this fancy, traditional British meal. But the lyrics use that imagery to go straight for the throat, attacking the whole idea of inherited wealth and class divides. The message is pretty clear. The game is rigged from the start. And it's the exact same move on Dark Pool Party. You've got this aggressive, almost violent language from the world of high-risk stock trading, and it's just slammed right up against sexual predation. What you get is this really powerful and frankly disturbing metaphor for how predatory capitalism can be. Okay. But here's where it gets really interesting. The album's most powerful, most surprising move is when it turns that sharp, satirical eye back on itself, aiming it right at its own main character.
Yeah, near the end of the record, on a track called Ballad of Malady, the whole script gets flipped. A new female voice just shows up and completely hijacks the narrative. And get this, she reveals that she was the one writing his script all along. And this new character, Malady, she just systematically dismantles Mabozza's entire persona. She calls him out, exposes all his supposed radicalism as being totally performative, just a safe little fantasies playing out by himself.
She points out the massive hypocrisy at the very core of his character. I mean, he talks a big game about worshiping the femme divine, but like she says, he just wants a sexual object, a fantasy. He doesn't want a real woman with a real voice and her own truth.
And that right there, that's the central conflict of this entire project. The album spends all this time carefully building up this hyper-masculine, radical dude, only to let a powerful woman's perspective come in and just completely tear it all down, exposing him as a total fraud.
So the track, and really the whole arc of the album, ends with this incredibly defiant call to action.
It completely recenters the female voice, not as a prop in some guy's story, but as the ultimate authority. She's the one who actually holds the power here.
So in the end, we're left with this really fascinating puzzle, right? An album that uses the most extreme provocation, not just to critique society, but to critique itself and its own narrator. It builds a monster just so it can slay it. And that forces us to ask, what is satire really for today? And, maybe more importantly, who really gets to hold the mic?